All right, everybody, your saltwater guide, Captain Dave Hansen. We got a phenomenal show for you today. Thanks to Deckhand Sports, Dave Farron and the gang over there, always here to support your saltwater guide on Fridays. We got Tim Ekstrom, and this is a super important show today, gang, going along the lines of what we've been talking about for the last couple of months on this Sandbass closure. We all have to be at those meetings on Wednesday and Thursday. And Tim and I are going to talk because between the two of us, we got over 100 years of sport fishing in Southern California. And my father absolutely believed in his heart that Tim Ekstrom was the sport fishing scientist. He would tell me every time Tim's on the show, shut up and listen to Tim. So that's why I wanted to get you on here. I think it's super important. We got a lot of stuff to go over with what's going on, Tim. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely, my pleasure to be here. As always, Dave and the conversation already started about 10 minutes ago, so we're well warmed up. But I'm always happy to join the broadcast, happy to be a guest and add any tidbit of knowledge I can to any discussion.
And gang, the thing about what's going on with this Fishing Game Commission meeting, we allowed you guys to come in on it back in February. Tim, I had over 200 of my members on the meeting, on the Zoom call. 50 of us participated in the discussion part, which blew them away. And we should have had way more, but they only allowed us 50 because they didn't buy the package on Zoom for the bigger numbers of people because they'd never seen anything like it before. So we were pretty excited about that, not counting Ken Frankie and the sport fishing people that were there, but just your saltwater guide members that showed up. We overwhelmed them. And this time it's going to be the same type of thing because it's time for we the people to be involved in all this stuff. Tim, you, my dad, Ken Frankie, Frank Ursetti, Wayne Coda, you guys were fighting this fight without any of us helping you for a very long time. And you kept talking, we need more people to get involved. Well, now we got the group rallied. We got them foamed up on the corner. They're eating every bait. They're listening to what we have to say. So today I would love to just share some knowledge of what you've seen in your phenomenal career of fishing down south, which none of us get to see. And as far as the barred sand bass population in Mexico, where I keep telling them that's where that fish comes from, we're not looking at that holdover fish, that 14 to 16 inch brownish gray sand bass that lives in the rocks in the kelp in Southern California, but those 5 and 6 pound white bellies that come up into Southern California in July and August that kind of are the reason why we have a sport fishing industry in Southern California. The barred sand bass is what built our industry, and the barracuda. Can you kind of delve into that a tiny bit, let everybody know? Because they've been hearing it from me for a long time.
Yeah, coastal, local, needless to say, they are bread and butter, foundational fish, if you will. I got to start off with a great story. This is 100% true. First sport boat trip that I ever took, my dad, when I want to say I was 5 years old. I might have been 6. First trip I ever went on a sport boat. It was on the La Jolla out of Point Loma Landing. And it was a 3/4 day. The weather was rougher than a cob. It was blowing from the west, and it was pretty much unfishable outside the harbor. This is no joke. We tied up to the bait receiver in San Diego. We never left the receiver all day. Wide open, giant sand bass. My dad got the jackpot with like an 8-pounder, filled the sacks with huge sand bass at the receiver in San Diego. And again, it was like 1972 or 1973. And I can speak now that being the beginning of the story, I would just short of guarantee you right now, and I could take Royal Star to probably 50 different spots south of the border between, let's say, San Quintin and Punta Abriojos and replicate that kind of fishing just about 365 days a year on barred sand bass. I mean, the population of sand bass, especially when you get down a little farther, when you get down below, say, Canoa's Point, from there, all along the coast there, what we call that Seven Sisters area. And then, of course, from like, it really begins like the crazy amount of them. Again, it kind of pops back up around Turtle Bay, South, San Pablo, all the way down below Abrielos area we call Hutchins Bank, and farther. But it's just, I mean, it's mind-boggling. We've had times, the guys, they will be we're coming up the line, messing around looking for calico bass. We're trying to get some yellows on some shallow water spots on the inside, and guys casting surface irons getting 3 sand bass on the same jig. They're so fired up. There's just balls of them coming up. Or if you fish up like a plug, with hooks on the front of them, you get 4 of them. There's one snagged by the tail. There's one, it's unbelievable the amount of sand bass down there. And again, it's not. This has been going on since. So the first time I fished on the first long range trip that I worked on Royal Polaris was in 1987. And it was the same back then. It was absolutely the same. I mean, the sand bass were just ridiculous all along the coast. You could catch thousands of them if you wanted to. Of course, we didn't, but you could. So I think the biggest, the feedback that I've provided through being on the board of directors of SAC and of course corresponding with providing our opinion through the letter writing campaign is that I think that there's a lot more. They need to get their science straight before they start considering severely restrictive policies, taking restrictive actions that'll really impact these fisheries here. And we've seen this repeated so many times, and this has been an argument. I remember it was the same thing with the bluefin. Our point was always, look, the science. They've got to have a better foundation of information before they start severely restricting these fisheries that impact our businesses and businesses up and down the coast as severely as they do. So anyway, that's my beginning salvo.
Well, that's perfect to roll into this to kind of give everybody that's listening an idea of what we're talking about as far as cyclical goes, because you and my father, when he was still alive, yesterday was his birthday. So thank you, Dad, for everything you did for us. And, but you guys were on the cutting. 2014, a lot of people don't understand, Tim. This is how many bluefin we were allowed to take for a very small amount of time. But guys like you and my dad and people fighting to make sure that we're saying, gang, they're not extinct. It's a cyclical thing. And then lo and behold, you guys got that number because of you, Ken, Frankie, Sack, my dad, everybody that worked so hard on it. You were able to stop the madness and say, hey, let's pause this for a minute. Can we have 2? And you guys got the number to 2. It was 10. Then it was 0. Then it got to 2. Think about this industry. If 2015 hit and we couldn't have any,
it would have been over. It would have put everybody out of business. I mean, bluefin have absolutely been the cornerstone of certainly the San Diego offshore fishery for the last 9 years, last 10 years. Before, when it was albacore, again, another example of the cycles that naturally occur. But yeah, without that bluefin, and I was there, I was duking it out with Ken and everybody else testifying before the Fisheries Council about that bluefin. And I mean, you said it correctly. Their proposal was absolute 0, no questions asked. Too bad, figure it out. 0, because I'm going to exaggerate. The last bluefin is swimming, and the entire world is after it. It's all over. It's done already. And regardless of these images that were provided by I'm forgetting his last name anyway, Tom, the pilot. There was Tom Wilson and Tom Green. That's the other.
Tom Green.
Regardless of these incredible images and the testimony that he provided, this quantity of bluefin it was unaccounted for by their surveys. It just was. I mean, who knows what happened in the ocean, what the shift was, what made such a concentration of bluefin stick around over here in the West Coast and avoid the a lot of the surveys, a lot of the zones they were looking over there in the western side of the Pacific. I should have said the east side of the Pacific, but the western side of the Pacific. I mean, clearly there was a hell of a lot more bluefin around, and that's evidenced by the fact. I should probably stop and say at this point, I know myself and just about everybody else now that's in this fishery, we are staunch proponents of limits, of reasonable limits, of not overfishing. I mean, it's absolutely necessary. There's no doubt about it. I'll use the bluefin again as an example. It was 5 a day, 15 total before we battle it out to 2 a day, 6 total, a 6 total bag limit. And you know what? That 6 total bag limit, 2 a days, is enough and then some. It's way enough, especially with the average size bluefin the last few years. Even on a long range trip, I mean, I've seen it countless times where the average size fish we're catching is 100 to 150 pounds. An angler on a 3-day trip, on a 5-day, 7-day, whatever it may be, catches 2 or 3 of those. They're like, I'm good. I don't need another one of those. So we're strong proponents of reasonable limits. We understand how critical it is for us to be the stewards of the resource, of the environment, being recreational fishermen. I mean, it's incumbent on us to be responsible. So we're all about effective fisheries management, and we're all about being the participants in whatever the process is, as long as it isn't so restrictive that it puts us out of business, that it removes the opportunity from the angling public. That's really what we know. There's all kinds of different fisheries. There's all kinds of different user groups that have interests, but and I know that the rec fleet in the aggregate does take a significant quantity of fish. There's no doubt, but it's not. I think first of all, the rec fishery, the anglers that participate in this fishery, I'm going to say the vast majority are on board with the responsible take of whatever it is they're harvesting, and we're the perfect community to be the front man in that effort.
Gang, if you want to know who Tim is, because a lot of you just jumped on here, the audience just doubled in the last couple minutes. This is Tim Ekstrom, co-owner of the Royal Star out of San Diego, California. And he has been in this industry for 50 years, pretty much. Right, Tim?
Yeah, just about. Actually, I started my first, I was around when I was a little kid, 57 now. And I started when I was a little kid, of course, little dock rat, bumming around the docks. But my first official job when I was getting paid to work was with Eddie McEwen on the Pacific Queen when I was 16. So I've got 41 years now, as an actual worker. This is what I've done for a living, since then, working out of Fisherman's Landing. It's hard to believe 41 years, but that is the number, which that's still that. I think I'd still have veteran status. 41, 50, who's counting, right?
Yeah, and when you think about you and me thinking about it, how in the heck did we end up being the old guys now? It's kind of weird, huh?
I'm telling you. I still also marvel, I'll go off on a tangent here, but I marvel at and I tell our anglers this, anyone who listens all the time, the fishing is so much better today than when I started. When I was a kid, going out on the local sport boats when I was 8, 9, 10, 11 years old in the late 70s here out of Mission Bay, out of Seaforth, or out of San Diego. The fishing today is so much better than it was back then. So much. I mean, by such a long way. What we've seen, especially in the last 20, 25 years. If somebody would have told you in the 1970s, because of course, the typical, let's call it the mainstream media narrative is always, oh, the world's coming to an end, everything, Earth's being overexploited, everything, it is the absolute opposite. What we've seen, especially here in this Southern California fishery, Southern California bite, down to the south in Mexico, through, yes, absolutely effective fisheries management, but also just through, I mean, it's amazing the productivity of this zone. I mean, the resource is just incredible, and obviously when properly managed, but it's it if you would have told me when I was 20 years old that, hey, you know what, in 35 years the fishing is going to be way better on a scale you can't even imagine 35 years from now, I would have laughed you out of the room. I would have said there's no way possible. But that is the truth.
And the old timers that you and I sat in the wheelhouse and listened to would tell us stories, and they don't even compare to the stories that you and I get to tell our kids and our grandkids today that we're seeing in the last 10, 12 years, like the bluefin fishery, the dorado fishery, the yellowtail fishery, just absolutely astonishing. And the problem, I believe, is that no one has 5 minutes anymore to wait to see what's going to happen tomorrow. It's like if it isn't exactly like it was yesterday, we got to panic. It's a mad panic. It's crazy.
Yeah, and immediately there's some blame is assigned to, over exploitation, climate change, whatever it might be. There's always some reason, and it's always our fault, of course. At least that's what the other, I'll just call it the opposite side of the ledger, likes to claim. You brought that up. You said the bluefin tuna fishery. How about the yellowfin tuna fishery in 2024? I mean, I've been doing this. I said 41 years now, a long time. I've been long range fishing since 1987. Royal Polaris, Royal Star, 200 plus days a year. When I was younger, way more than that. Long range fishing down the coast of Mexico, offshore Mexico, everywhere down there. I mean, I don't even know how many thousands of days, thousands. 2024 was hands down, nothing even compares. The best yellowfin tuna fishing I have ever seen in my life by not even, I mean, it completely reset the metric. Now, we've seen really good yellowfin tuna fishing. We've caught a lot of them, big numbers. What was so extraordinary about last year were the big numbers. The distribution of fish was just incredible. I mean, there was, you could go out on a 7-day trip and there was 150 miles of anywhere you stopped or chose to fish, you had a very high likelihood of catching yellowfin tuna in the 30 to 40 pound class, or the ones that we really were seeking were these 50 to 80 pounders. And I mean, it used to be, if the fish was, because we catch a lot of when we're down on the ridge, 15, 18, 20 pound tuna. If those tuna were in that 20, 25 pound class, like, man, that's a nice yellowfin, especially for fishing in the fall down there. Hey man, we were driving away. It's like, oh, these are junk. Get out, get away, like run from the 30 pounders, the 40 pounders. We're trying to selectively target these 60 to 90 pounders, and not just one trip. I mean, every single trip, that all the way through even December, the trips that were it was still just, I mean, this thing lasted from July all the way through the end of December, and not just us I mean, every boat. Drive down, load up on 60 to 90 pound tuna. And if you were, unfortunate enough to not get the 69 pounder, 60 to 90, you had to settle for the 30 to 40 pounders. You still make your catch. But just think of how extraordinary that is. Going back to what I was saying earlier, 25 years ago, if somebody would have told you that in 2024 was going to be the best yellowfin tuna fishing you'd ever seen in your life by such a long way. I told everybody. I told my son Duke, who started working with us full time on the boat, it's like, if you ever see fishing that's even close to this again, perhaps in your lifetime, I mean, it's going to be landmark. It's going to be absolutely incredible. That said, there's still a lot of it down there. We didn't catch it all, so maybe this year is going to be better. But we can, again, you and I, we start talking on these topics. The main thing, and we were talking about it before the broadcast began, these are all cycles. The ocean, the planet, whether it's farming, fishing, weather, the sea temps, whatever it may be, these are cycles that naturally occur, and they're going to occur whether we're here or not, whether we're participating in a fishery or not. And it's been proven so many times that we can take these fluctuations, being in fishing and this business as long as I have, we can take these fluctuations with a grain of salt. Not that we're cavalier when fishing falls off. I mean, obviously it's painful. You want to make catches of fish and get everybody happy and bring fish home for the larder, but we know that just because it falls off today or this week or for a month, that's not the end of the world, that it's not the last one swimming, that they're going to come back, they're going to rebound or something. If the old adage that nature abhors a vacuum, whatever void is created, something else is going to fill in. Case in point, albacore go away, the void is filled by bluefin, by yellowfin, by yellowtail, by dorado, whatever else is got a hankering for whatever forage is out here. I mean, last year, the anchovies, and I don't know if that was a catalyst, but one could certainly think so. The amount of anchovies that was on the coast last year and still is.
Yeah, exactly. And we talk about that a lot, gang. I got to show everybody a real quick video that I made with Deckhand Sports, because they are the sponsor of the show today. And then we're going to go right back into this conversation because we're just getting started. All right, gang, your saltwater guy, Capt. Dave Hansen. We're over here in the Deckhand Sports booth at the Orange County Fairgrounds and Pacific Coast Sport Fishing Festival. I want you to see all these phenomenal products they have in the booth here. This is one of the best kill bags on the market, if not the best. These things, the zipper system on these, second to none. One hand, you can open and close this. You don't need to push it closed. You don't need all that garbage. The zipper system is phenomenal. Also, the phenomenal amount of tie downs. Everywhere there's a tie down. Every boat is different. So you need to have plenty of tie downs to tie these things down. Deckhand Sports makes a phenomenal product. Look at these little ice chests. These are awesome. Carry around the little backpacks. Where are the backpacks? I need a backpack.
Big benefit of this one is say you're on
these cool little backpacks. You see us on the live shows throwing our lobsters in here. Then you just throw it on your back and walk up to your car and go home. Pretty badass. Look at that. And they got big ones. They got small ones. They got that. Come over here, Elliot. Look at it. Here's the new air coffin that we show on the show every day. This is an unbelievable product. It goes right in this nice bag. You can carry it on and off the boat. Very easy. Look at me. I don't even have any muscles. I'm holding it up with one hand. You throw it on the deck, pump it up. The pump comes with it. You pump it right up, and then you got this killer ice chest ready to go. But it's not an ice chest. It's the Deckhand air coffin. Check it out. Go to deckhandsports.com and see all the phenomenal products they have to offer. Yeah, pretty cool. And we'll throw the QR code up on the screen. As you can tell, Tim, I've been doing that show for 4 days. I didn't have much of a voice left, but we were able to pull it off. And
Also, throwing a plug for those guys too. We just started carrying their bags at Fisherman's Processing. They're fantastic. We switched over this year. It's just an incredible product, and is really, it's going to save guys a lot of hassle. A lot of times anglers catch more fish than they have more fish in the end than they anticipate. They bring 3 or 4 coolers and they've got another cooler full of fish but nowhere to put it. So we stock those bags right there at the processor, fill them with ice and the product, and away they go. And they're great. We contemplated keeping coolers there, but they're so fantastic just for storage space when they're not being used. And those things in particular, they're so durable, they just about last forever.
And then as far as a contact for your product, customer service. I mean, it's kind of like how you and I run our business. Dave Farring gets it. He understands that it's all about the customer, and he is standing there anytime you need him. He answers his phone. He'll fix any problem. Like he said, they create a ton of bags. Once in a while, there'll be a flaw in there, and he just hands you a brand new bag. He doesn't even care. He just takes that flaw and deals with it. He's got a great customer service reputation. Check out Deckhand Sports right there underneath. And if Tim Ekstrom, him and his partner Randy Toussaint, they were the guys that really brought fish care to the forefront in the industry when you guys bought the RSW thing into the thing. So if Tim's telling you that's the bag, you may want to listen. I'm just saying. so back to what we were talking about, this cyclical thing, something really incredible. We kind of scratched on it for a second, but in 2023, Tim, if you were sitting in the wheelhouse with Frank going down the line back in the early 90s, late 80s, and somebody told you, hey, the 3/4 day boat in Dana Point in 2023 is going to catch 700 Dorado, you would have gone, no way. There's no way they're going to. Yeah, a mile and a half off the beach in Dana Point, they're going to catch the 3/4 day boat's going to go out with 70 people and catch 70 Dorado. You're going to go, right. And they did it they did it for weeks, not one day.
Yeah, incredible. I harken back to, how was it? Was it 2014 or 2015? We had that huge El Nino, and I don't know how, it was quite a few. There were wahoo on kelps outside here. The one day I remember leaving on it. We were going on a 7-day, it might even have been a 10-day trip in the fall, but we were driving through the middle grounds at Coronado Islands, right? We left and driving through the middle. It was a 10-day. I remember it now. And it was the first trip in October. And we drive through those middle grounds and it's 76.5 in blue. I mean, like, we could have been at Clarion. We could have been, back in the day. It was just unbelievable. And I'm thinking to myself, God, man, I wouldn't be surprised if there was wahoo here. Right? The next day, and I can't remember. I think it was one of the Taft brothers. I can't remember if it was Bobby or something. Anyway, they went out they took the boys out there fishing. And they had 15 or 20 wahoo there in the middle grounds at Coronado Islands, and again, this is in 2014 or 2015. That was another year. It was just incredible. It was Dorado on every kelp under the sun. Guys were catching there in that Point Loma kelp beds. There were blue marlin out here, just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and all that's in the last 12, 15 years, gang. And so when you think, the reason why Tim and I are talking about this is because the people that are setting on the board, making these decisions to take away the fish that built the industry, the barred sand bass, they're going to make a decision on the 17th of April. We need to be involved in this meeting. We'll throw the QR code up again like we do every day on the show. But you need to understand, this fish is not in peril of being extinct. It's not in peril of being overfished. This is a fish that has no commercial value at all. None in California. No commercial value. It's not allowed to be commercially fished. So to say that people that went fishing with Tim on the Royal Star and then went up and went fishing on their skiff were able to adversely affect the population of this sand bass with the fishing pole, it hasn't happened. And we're watching videos come out right now, Tim, because there's a big push to close this fishery. The people that don't know what they're talking about are on a mission to close this fishery for why I can't even imagine. Because this fish, if you think about it, it hits everything that they like. It hits the people that don't have a lot of money that can go fish for them on the pier, on the beach, on their skiff, on their boat. It hits the low financial people. I'm not finding the right word, but it hits the DEI.
Yeah, it's on the lower end of the economic spectrum. It's
Thank you.
Simple as that. And that is 100% true. A lot of the anglers, and I see them every day in the Dolphin coming down the dock, and I go fishing with them. When Duke was going on there a lot of these anglers, they really do depend on that trip to not only provide a great source of recreation, but they're also depending on that for a great source of fresh fish, fresh protein for them and the family, as a result of that outing, and maybe even a chance to stockpile some in the freezer. It really does make a difference, and it makes the ticket price of a half-day trip that much more worth it. They're actually making an investment, and the return on the investment, again, is a recreation. But the fact that they bring home something to provide for the family, it makes a big difference to somebody who's scrimping or saving or putting away a few bucks to make a half-day trip every other week.
And then in just a short time, 12 years ago, they took the limits from 10 to 5, and they took the size from 12 to 14 with no science at all. It was an emotional closure. And they did. The reason I say that, Tim, is because The same day that they took our sand bass, they took our calico bass. And then a really weird thing that they did on the same day was spotted bay bass. You and I fished since we were little kids. How many 14-inch spotted bay bass have you ever even seen?
Yeah, that's a dinosaur for a spotted bay bass. And I mean, how is that even supported by what science supports that? What was the, you made the perfect point. It was an emotional decision. It wasn't based on any scientific rationale that I can think of. I mean, a spotted bay bass, and there's lots of them too, by the way. There's lots of them. I think that to clearly we can say and I'm not a scientist, I don't have a scientific background, I don't have the diploma, so I freely acknowledge that all of my knowledge, all of my observations, all of my opinions are anecdotal. That said, I got 40 years experience out on the water. I've got an awful lot of time, an awful lot of days, and a literal library of conditions that I have logged in my head, and I think that people such as you and I that have participated in these fisheries for as long as we have, that our credibility should not be questioned by those in the on the the academic side of the ledger, let's say. I mean, we should definitely, they should lend our observations a lot of credence, because we know what we're talking about. We don't know what we're talking about because we read it in a book. We know what we're talking about because we've done it. We walk the walk, we talk the talk. And I think there's been a big, I've lived it myself a couple times, and being a participant in these hearings, advocating on some of these issues, and it's let me just put it this way. I've had it grate on my nerves a few times just watching some of these holier than thou academics just completely dismissing somebody like me. Just they just let you say your piece and they just move right on because you don't have a degree, you didn't go to college, you don't know jack, because you're just clearly not as educated as worthy. It's true. I'm telling you like it is. I've been on the receiving end of that a few times, more than a few times. So, I think that in this process, and I know we had a great conversation, by the way, with she's actually running for governor, Tony Adkins. She's the senator, Demetrius, and she was in the SAC meeting back in January. We had a great conversation. She came to the meeting and participated with us. And we had a great conversation with her, emphasizing that point, and that when these decisions are made, when these decision makers convene, that it's really important they include individuals just like us who actually are we're not just a user group. We're the ones who participate in the process. We participate in the fishery daily, and that our observations and our opinions as such do have an awful lot of credence, perhaps even more so than those that read it in a book and never picked up a fishing rod in their life.
Or just went outside, to be perfectly honest with you. They just went outside. And you and I, before we went live, we were talking about what my father told me, because the sand bass, literally, if it wasn't for the barred sand bass, there wouldn't be a Royal Star, there wouldn't be a Royal Polaris, there wouldn't be any of this, because no one would have got introduced to fishing in Southern California without the barred sand bass. Everybody, if you go back to lineage, they look back to, they started out, well, not you, but most people didn't start out long range fishing, to work as a living. And they started out on the half day boats. Mike Pritchard's, the Dave Hansons, the Frank LaPrestis. Frank worked for my dad on the boat.
Right here. Me too. Yeah.
And so the sand bass is such an integral part of the fishery. And my father said in 1957, he can remember the day that they caught the first sand bass, and they didn't even know what it was. And he had been fishing already since 1947 on the half day boats. He was running boats in 55, and he was saying in 57 they started catching these sand bass, And they were like, what? And they caught them when they were getting bait off the bait boat because it was in the mud, in the sand, in 12 fathoms of water. And they were like, what? No, they had a flasher back then. They didn't have this high tech electronics that we have today. And they were like, just stop and start catching these gray fish. That's what he called them. We know they're like greenish brown or greenish and black, but they thought they were gray bass and they didn't even know what they were. So this goes to the cycle thing. And this goes to the migratory thing because they were fishing kelp beds. The kelp, this is what my dad told me. The kelp beds went from San Francisco to Tijuana, no break. There was no break in the kelp. It was solid kelp beds back then. We hadn't used the ocean as a toilet. We hadn't started dumping raw sewage in, and we hadn't done what we did to the horseshoe and to all the other places that we did. And all there was kelp. And there was times where you couldn't catch calico bass as big as your index finger. And then were all the calico bass gone? And then the sandbass showed up and all the different things and all this stuff cyclical. Now, Tim remembers when we didn't have sardines for bait. And I remember, and Tim had to go down south and you had to catch bait before you went offshore to the banks or and you go into Hippolito or something and you'd go down there to try to catch bait and you'd stop and you couldn't catch anything but sand bass 6 at a time on the sabiki wire, or we called them four flies back then, right?
Yeah, the handy dandy or the Lucky Joes.
Lucky Joes.
Lucky Joe, the yellow,
yellow
red yarn. Yeah, it's still like that. You have times where the things just absolutely plague you. You know, like every time you stop, even when you're stopping on bait, they still show up and plague you. You know, you're getting little sand, now not big ones, but you get nice sized ones also. That still happens down there. You know, again, going back to the where we were talking about at the beginning of the broadcast, the fact that I mean the amount of sand the amount of sand bass down there is. I know you know, you don't know what you don't know. All we know is that there's a whole hell of a lot of them down there, and certainly the decision makers up here have not considered that. They've not calculated that or added that in the calculus. So it's amazing to me. You tell me that, you know, you say your dad, you know, before 1957 they didn't even see one. I mean, think about that. So what changed? I mean, certainly can't blame it on, you know, whatever, climate change or anything. You certainly can't blame it on that. You know, sardines, same damn thing. You know, where'd all the sardines go? Why all of a sudden, you know, there were no sardines, and why all of a sudden over in the course of 3 years, all of a sudden, you know, the coast was just absolutely inundated with sardines between 1992 and 1994. Like, how did it happen that fast? You know, where did they come from? They are just another one of those marvelous cycles that you know we as mankind, you know, we think we know everything about everything, but you know, we're one of the great quotes that it all assigned it to Marco Collini. I heard it through Herb Gale, and he was one of the fishermen that Herb admired more than anyone. He said, every day I'm out here, I'm reminded of how much I don't know about it, and I think that's a perfect example.
Yeah, Bob Lorman, we are seeing your comments. Absolutely. Bob Lorman started fishing with my dad back in the 50s on the San Clemente Pier. And the thing about, and I'm so glad you're talking about this sardine thing, because this is kind of interesting, gang. If you stop and you think about this, now I was deckhanding in the 70s and the early 80s, the 70s, not the 80s. In the 80s, I was working for Thompson down in San Diego on the Patrician. But in the 70s, I was working with my dad's captains, and I was a deckhand. And I remember standing on the bait tank on the Clemente fishing sand bass, and the greenback mackerel showed up, and I never seen one before. And I thought they were tiger fish. And we were fishing day in and day out, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the greenback mackerel showed up, and I remember the captain I was working for at the time told me, "Oh, those are greenback mackerel, but they're extinct, Dave. We caught those. We used those. We caught them. We used to braille them off the pier. We used to put them in 55-gallon drums, and we would sell them. That was like a bycatch when we were sport fishing." And I was like, "They're in my little brain as a little kid. I'm like, they're extinct. Well, what are we catching? They're extinct." Then set the clock up 1979, 1980. I remember the first sardine I ever saw swimming around the bait tank with the anchovies. And he had little dots on his back, Tim. And I looked in there and I was like, what is this? And I worked my ass off as a deckhand to catch that sardine in the bait tank through all the anchovies. And I remember I caught him and I grabbed him and I ran up to the bridge and I talked to Doug Harmon at the time, the captain, and I'm like, what is this? And he said, and I thought it was a domino fish. It had little dots on his back, and I'm just a dumb little kid. And I go, what is this? And he goes, that's a Monterey sardine, Dave. Those are extinct. And I was like, again, my little head's like, extinct. He goes, oh, yeah, the canneries in Monterey fish those to extinction. There are none. There's none. I don't even know how it got in the bait tank. And now you listen to what Tim just said. What did you say? 92, 93, 94. That's when they showed up.
Yeah. Yeah. There were a couple. Can you guys hear me still?
Yeah. Loud and clear.
A little tag that says the host muted your, oh, it's gone. Yeah, it was, I want to say around, it was around like 91 and we started seeing a couple of them mixed in with the sardines. And it was like, within a matter of months, it was like 50% sardines and anchovies. And then the next year it was straight sardine. It's been straight sardine ever since. This is the first year, you know, there's been a bit of a dearth of sardines around this wintertime. But, you know, again, I don't have the PhD, man, but, you know, the water's cold this year. It's a lot colder. I just made a run with Royal Star the other day going down to Ensenada, get our papers squared away down there. And I saw what for one small stretch it was 59 degrees. The rest of it was 52 to 54 degrees. They told me down there they caught a salmon in front out of you know, I don't know, I was out there by Todos Santos. They caught a salmon down there. And I remember back in 1986 when I was working on the Pacific Queen with Eddie, we had a similar year. It was freezing cold. It was in July and the water was 54 degrees and brown at the Coronado Islands. And we got 3 king salmon on the rock pile. I'm not kidding you. Big ones too at the rock pile. So, you know, you gotta think, you know, I mean, just by association, boy, it's got a lot colder water and, you know, maybe this has something to do. Maybe those sardines kind of slid down where they like it a little bit better, you know, where the water's warmer. There seems to be an explanation, at least again, for me, who's been out here as long as I have.
Yeah, the whole cyclical thing is what I'm trying, because a lot of the people that are watching, and we have a massive audience right now, is we're going to be participating in this meeting on Thursday. So all the stuff that Tim and I are talking about right now are points that we need to talk about on this meeting, because the people that are running the show, the 5 people, they've never been outside. We already can tell they don't have a suntan. I'm not trying to take anything. That's okay. We need people inside too. Everybody can't be outside like Tim and I. But the cyclical thing, the sardines, the anchovies, the albacore, the bluefin, the dorado, the sandbass is about as cyclical as it gets, gang. And it does not like when the water in Southern California is in the 70s. It does not like the warm water that we've had since 2015. And we have had warm water, Tim. You can tell everybody. You've been driving up and down 1,000-mile runs, which most people can't even comprehend that. A 1,000-mile run, that's like most of the runs. That's a short run, Tim. If you put it back and forth 500 miles down, 500 miles back, and you see the water was 69 to 75 for like ever. And now all of a sudden, you just went to Ensenada. It's free. 51 degrees in front of Long Beach right now. We haven't seen this since 2013.
Yeah. Yeah. It's way colder this year. And it started, it really started last summer. You know, that just a much, and I remember, I think I was talking on one of the other shows. It might have been with you, but we were commenting last summer on how just this ripping southerly current all year, like California current dominant, which we haven't seen for, you know, a long time. You know, switch by the middle of summer, you know, there'd be way more uphill than downhill, but that thing has been fierce, and it's the same thing now. It's been fierce for going on, you know, almost a year now, just ripping downhill current, ripping to the south and just creating that big upwelling. And obviously the water's colder up there to begin with, but just creating all that upwelling along the coast, which, you know, from the cyclic point of view, hey, it's a good thing. All that upwelling is great. You know what I mean? it provides all that forage for the forage fish, and the bottom of the food pyramid begins. It's really an essential part of the health of this coast, but it might not be all that great for the immediate production of a fishery, say like Sandbass, say like bluefin, say like yellowtail, whatever, say like barracuda. We go on and on, but we know that this is just an essential part of the process. It's an essential part of the whole ecosystem that these cycles go through. Again, whether we're here or not, the same thing is going to happen. I think that the most important thing that we're talking about when it comes to these meetings and these scientific panels, commissioners, whoever it is the decision makers are, what we always try to emphasize is like, don't make a knee-jerk decision based on what you see for a year, what you see for it's not an indicator in the case of especially a migratory fish. It's not an indicator of the health of the entire resource, of the entire population. That's really the point to emphasize, and it's been hammered home. I know that Ken and everybody's been participating. Ken, Frankie, and everybody's been participating in the process, has done their best to drive that point home. I know that many of us who wrote letters and provided our point of view have emphasized that. But I really think that's the correct approach. Nobody likes to hear that they're just wrong and have a bunch of people yell at them. It's more like, hey, wait a minute, let's just make sure we have all the information before you make a decision. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. We got I'm just going to tell you, Tim, we got a tiny bit of problem right now. A lot of people the wind right now, they're starting to blow really hard in your yard. So
on my side, let me move to the other side.
And this is live. This is a live podcast, gang. So we can work together to make it better.
I got the fog wind is getting after it. How about that? I'll just go inside here.
Much more better. Yes. That is perfect. So yeah, now we kind of, all the fans and everybody got a kind of an idea of what's going on with the Sandbass thing. They got a better idea because we got Tim in here and he's looking at it at a different angle. Yeah, the Sandbass closure thing is not going to affect Tim's livelihood, but it's going to affect the whole overview of this industry, gang. And if we make a knee-jerk reaction, that's why we all have to be educated. And when we sit down to talk, and Ken Frankie wants all of us involved in this meeting to talk, you just have to sit down, think about what Tim said, maybe listen a little bit after this show, listen to the show again while you're driving home or something. Write down what you want to say. We're all going to have 1 minute because there's going to be 1 million of us showing up on this Zoom call. And we'll just do our 1 minute, write down what you want to say, and be cool with what you're saying. But I really want to talk to Tim now about this long range thing, what you guys are seeing down the line, and what I know this is a weird thing to talk about, but we've been thinking about it for a long, long time with this giant current pushing down the coast. Explain a little bit about how you know the current, because when he turns around to drive back home, gang, he knows what the current's doing because all of a sudden the boat cruises at 10 knots. When it's time to go home, same RPM, now it's doing 8.5 or 9 knots. That's how he knows. But the current, are you seeing on the outside? Are you seeing that bluish out? Hey, buddy, you want to be on the show? He sees the monkey. He just wants to taste the monkey. Do you think we may have an opportunity this year to see a fish that most people inside they've heard us talk about it, but do you think maybe there's a chance this year?
I mean, I would never say there isn't a chance. You could certainly say the ground is fertile. You got the just this incredible resurgence, if you will, of the anchovies. But it's more that there's, what we've seen beginning last year is this anchovy has it's just inundated the entire coast. And this is going all the way down to the ridge. I mean, the anchovies that we're seeing up here, it's the same way down there off, Ascension, Hippolyto, San Pablo, just unbelievable in that anchovies. A lot of that yellowfin tuna all year, everything down there was just gorging itself on those. So I mean, you throw that into the equation, you throw the cooler water into the equation. Would I be, let me just say this, I wouldn't be surprised to see albacore show up. But that said, I wouldn't be surprised. It was cooler water last year. Going back to that whole yellowfin thing, in addition to just being this incredible year and the size class of the fish, the other thing last year is that those yellowfin, they were still sticking around and just biting nails in 61-degree water, 62-degree water, 63-degree water. I mean, we were fishing them in July outside of Hippolyto, San Paulo. The warmest water we saw was 64 degrees. And that is, exactly the opposite of what you would expect fishing yellowfin tuna. Typically, it's 66, 7, 8 on the bottom end, and the best of it occurs in water temperature 70 and up. But boy, it sure last year broke the mold on that. So I don't know. I've ceased to predict albacore. I've just said, you know what, man, like what I do know, I would stake everything I've learned on the certitude that they will show up again someday off Southern California. No question about it. I just don't know when that day is going to be, what year it's going to be. It seemed like there was a pattern for a long time, 10 or 12 years. There were some cycles, going all the way back to the 1920s, I should say, where it was like every 10 years there would be a pause, or there'd be like 4 or 5 really good years, and then there'd be a pause for 6, 8, 10 years. Then it'd just go Richter again, for 5, 6 years, then it'd fall off. I kind of thought I had it figured out there. I was like, oh, every 10 years, there was that really good fishing in 83, 84, 85 albacore, and then it fell off, and it was really 80, 85 was the last of it. And then about 97, that's when they showed up again, 97, 98, 99, all the way till 2006, 7. I mean, it's just, 10 years of unbelievable, insane albacore fishing. And then it dropped off again. So around 2017, 18, 19, I'm thinking to myself, all right, we're at about that, 10-year mark, 12-year mark. It's any day now, looking at your watch, just expected it to happen. And here I am, it's 2025. I kind of gave up on the 10 to 12-year cycle thing. I don't know. But, again, I do believe that we're going to have an incredible opportunity catching albacore out here again. I believe that'll happen, but like I said, I gave up on predicting when that's going to happen.
And now let's talk about your boat for a little bit. Your boat's on a trip right now. Brian's driving it down the coast. What's the plan? How many days? What are we doing? Where are we headed? What are we going to do?
So we just departed. We've been in our annual maintenance cycle. Did a bunch of work on the inside of the boat. Wasn't a great big year cosmetic on the outside. It's kind of, we pick and choose. We focused an awful lot on some mechanical stuff and a lot of work on again, the inside of the boat. We did the upgrades for the Coast Guard requirements, the new egress rules and escape hatches, et cetera. So we got a lot of good stuff done. Boat's ready to run, ready to fish. Brian, we now, going back to this cycle thing, we used to run when I was a kid. When I started running Royal Polaris when I was 21 years old, and when I was a kid, we always had a couple, if not, at least one, if not a couple, 8 days or 7-day trips in April, and we would go down there, fish yellowtail, yellowfin tuna, Laos rocks, yellowtail on the ridge, work our way up. Tremendously successful trips. And quite a few of us would run at least, we'd crank out a couple of 8-day trips, 7-day trip again in April, May. It was somewhat of a routine for the boats. And I don't know, I think there were a couple of slow years and we kind of all just got away from it. It just went by the wayside. I know we started running longer trips, whatever, but we resurrected the April 8-day this year. The boat just departed today. First trip of the season after our maintenance. We're doing an 8-day trip. Brian is unless he runs into an area of fish that is so compelling that he can't stop, he's heading to the bottom end of things. Start out on Laos rocks. We do have some indications, based on water temps. Some of the guys that went by there, that there's been pretty good sign of fish there, in particular yellowtail. But we've had tremendous fishing for yellowfin tuna, Laos rocks in April. And I know based on the reports that we've received from commercial boats that are out on the grounds, there's tremendous sign of bluefin down there still, all the way down outside, west of say Abriojos, west of Bahia Asuncion, out there, 80, 100 miles, Rosa Bank, and in between here and there, also in between the area west of Benitez, and there's a lot of fish that are available with a good weather window. And the setup, he's got I just talked to him before we came on the broadcast. They got a beautiful load of sardines, just absolutely, extraordinary bait. So they're in a perfect position to go down there. They got great weather for the first 4 days. They're in a perfect position to go down there and make good on whatever opportunities are to be had. I feel good about it. I feel really good about this time of year, especially what we've seen the last, 7, 8, 10 years. I think we've all been missing a big lick at this time of year, hence us adding this trip. And now we're going to find out if our gut has delivered. That said, I believe it will. I think he's going to go down there and have a good trip.
And we're going to show the website and what's going on this year. You guys got any availability? You have any trips available? Or are you pretty booked like always?
We've got a really good lineup this year. We have just an incredible crew. We've always been very fortunate. Randy and I, Brian, we've had a very consistent philosophy in how we run our boat, and our professionalism is what our operation speaks to our professionalism. And in every aspect of the operation, from the time you call Tracy to the time you get on the boat, and how we handle ourselves, how our standard of customer service, our fish handling, all the way till the end when you go take your product to Fisherman's Processing, and how, again, the customer service extends all the way through the processing part of the equation. I don't know if you know, but my wife, Marilee, she took over the processor it's about a year and a half. It was in November of 2023. And she's had a tremendous career in business. She worked in retail forever. She was in a venture capital firm. She's really got incredible credentials in customer service. She knows how to run a business professionally, efficiently. She's just done an incredible job. It is not the same business that it was 2 years ago. And I mean, it's like apples and oranges, not the same business. And Sean always did a good job, but it's just sometimes it takes a fresh set of eyes, you know what I mean? And she had a fresh set of eyes and a tremendous career in that really set herself up to set all of us up. I mean, we've benefited so much from her management and leadership. But again, all the way through the back end, the customer service remains consistent with Fisherman's Processing. The boat's just in great shape. We got our operators this year, myself, of course, Brian. We've got Captain Roy Rose, who's going to be joining us for, a good 30% of the time. He's signed on for, 100, 120 days a year behind the helm or on the boat with us, and more if he wants to. I mean, we just have a leadership team based on a wealth of experience. Randy, he's not running the boat, but he's in the wings. If the wheels fell off the bus, we could pull him out of the bullpen and get him in there. But between, Roy, Brian, and I running the show, between our crew, that we got very, very low turnover. We do have a couple of new guys, young guys that are just gung ho. My son being one of them. But we're just about to where everybody. What do we have? Just about everybody now. A couple more young guys getting their captain's credentials within the next few weeks. Everybody's got licenses. I mean, we are really firing on all cylinders, which we do most of the time. But this year, it's like we went from an 8-cylinder to a 12-cylinder. It's just incredible, the platform we have. So I'm really excited about the upcoming season. We don't have a lot of openings, but Tracy has a way of working magic. If you go on our website and you see a trip and it says that it's full, but you still want to go, pick up the phone, give her a jingle. A lot of those trips that, there may be an opening here or there that adds that opens up, or she may know of one. It may be a the majority of the trip is taken up by a charter group, but they might have a couple guys they've got the spot reserved, but they've got a couple guys that are waffling. So there may be some availability there that she knows about. So don't hesitate to call if there's a trip that fits your schedule. There's dates you want to inquire about. She has a way of working magic in getting anglers on trips that they might otherwise pass by if they just see that it's full on the website. So again, don't hesitate to call. But I'm excited. I mean, I can't wait to go fishing myself. I leave next Friday on the 19th on another 15-day. Roy and I are taking the boat out then. But I'm getting all now. I'm thinking about fishing at the same time we're talking here. I still have that. I still have that enthusiasm. Like I get that. I still get excited about it like I was when I was a kid. You know what I mean? I just I can't wait to go fishing. I get excited about the thought of it and what's to come. I think the setup overall, fishing wise, for this season, it looks pretty damn good. I mean, there's a lot of bluefin showing already. Everything. I know there's fish along the coast, yellows on the coast, or yellows in the islands down below. This is this classic springtime setup. You see a lot of fish, but it's squirrely, it's up and down. You got weather windows you have to take advantage of. This is just, it's like textbook bluefin right now. And there's a ton of it out there. Trust me, that the fleet hasn't really mobilized. There's just a few of these early season trips being made that really haven't been all that productive. Have no fear. I think these things are going to settle in. We're going to get our shot, but you got to get out there. You got to get out in the water, and you got the old proverbial throw your line in the water to see if you can see what's going to happen. I think that the setup is good. The bluefin, the sign of the bluefin from right now, there's bluefin basically on just geographically from like the 60-mile bank all the way down to where I said before, out west of Assumption. I mean, they're seeing bluefin from there and everywhere in between. So there's a healthy amount of bluefin out there, healthy amount of bluefin to be caught that are eventually going to do what they've done every year, I suspect, is they're going to work their way north and become more and more available as we push into the summertime.
Yeah, Elliot's got to go. Do you have a little bit of time to go over the hour, Tim? Or are you busy?
No, I have plenty of time.
Okay. Because I know Elliot's got a ton of stuff going on at his house. Elliot, if you could just throw the phone number up there to get a hold of the office, to get on the waiting list. Gang, it's like Tim said, she does magic and she can get you on there. But I wanted to talk about a couple of things with you. Roy Rose, what a phenomenal human. One of my buddies, one of my pals, and to have him back together with you, it's like putting the band back together. You guys grew up back in the old days with Frank on the Royal. So to have you two, he told me when you guys were on that 15-day trip last year, when he first got together with you, he said the days went by so fast. You guys just had the time of your life. You laughed. He said he hadn't laughed that hard in a long time, and he loves to laugh.
I cannot speak highly enough about Roy. And you're right. We go back, 30 some odd years. It's funny. He was a Seaforth guy and I was a Fisherman's Landing guy. We didn't have a lot of interaction when we were in our youth, but long range fishing and I was off Royal Polaris. I worked one trip on there with Roy when I ran one trip for Frank, impromptu, one long trip. That was the only time that I spent on the boat at sea with him, but we've always been very close as far as working with each other on the water, via radio, via Starlink, now, via whatever form of communication comms we had out there. He's been one of my trusted resources. We work with all our guys, but then we have our guys that are true friends that we have 100% confidence in, and, sharing information, and we might share a little more with them than others, if you know what I mean. He was one of my guys and vice versa. So what you said, it trumps all, though. He's just a phenomenal human being. He really is. Like, he's a sincerely incredible person. He's got a heart of gold. He's a fishing son of a gun. I mean, the guy is as good as they come. Old school guy, instinctual. And, if it's there to be had, if it's there to be caught, he's gonna do it. And he's just like, he's the consummate people person. He understands the whole customer service part, but he's very, you know, he's so sincere. It doesn't come from a desire to, it's not like a financial incentive. It's his instinct. You know what I mean? He's sincere. He's just the funnest guy to be on the boat with. I mean, he's just got you in stitches all the time. Jesus, you're about to gaff a fish, and he says one thing, and you just about, I mean, you almost drop the gaff. You're laughing so hard. You know, you're about to piss your pants. The guy, I mean, he's just got that kind of quick wit, and you know, he's one of those guys that's just impossible not to like. He just adds so much to the atmosphere. We're so incredibly fortunate to have had the opportunity. We had a transition and ownership, you know, one of our prior operators, whatever, but it was like one of those things that, you know, cliche as it is to say, it was meant to be. It absolutely was. It was meant to be. And again, we are the beneficiaries of incredible fortune in being able to join forces with him. He's going to bring, and he just elevates. I mean, Royal Star, I can say it with 100% confidence, our brand that we've established and our history. We've always run an elevated operation from every aspect. And if it couldn't get any better, you know what, guys, it just got better. It got that much better. So, you know, we're in just a phenomenal position to keep providing incredible long range trips to, you know, anyone and everyone who can sign on with us. And it's our passion, man. It's not a business for us. It's our passion. It's our life. And nothing makes us happier than going out and providing these incredible fishing experiences for everyone we're sharing a voyage with.
Yeah. And then the people are asking, and this is one of the things you hear every time someone meets Roy. Can I tell, is that really your hair? Yeah, it's really his hair. And then he's got his son Royale's got the same hairdo. It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild, gang. And like Tim said, the guy piss a puddle. We're all three standing in his backyard at his new house. We're standing there fishing in that puddle. We're fishing at his house. We're eating as fast as Lauren can get us the food, and we're back out there fishing in his backyard. And then when he's done doing that, he jumps in the truck and he drives back to San Diego, jumps on the boat, goes on a 15-day trip, and he's right there at the rail with all of you all the time. He doesn't want to miss a thing in life. And that's what you want when you're buying a ticket to go on the boat. You want to be hanging out with Tim and Brian and Roy. That's what you want, gang. It's what it's all about. Nobody wants to catch fish more than those three guys. Even you might think, I spent all this money, I want to catch fish. Not more than Tim or Brian or Roy. You don't.
Yeah. And you know, really what makes it an experience so valuable, and it's why we've built such an incredible clientele, why we have such an incredible percentage of repeat clientele. It's like 85-90% on most of our trips, with good reason. And I want to emphasize to everybody, if you haven't been out with us, it's not exclusive in that, you know, no one excludes anyone. If you're fortunate enough to be on a trip with a group of anglers on Royal Star, they're the most welcoming individuals, most welcoming anglers for somebody that joins them on a trip, because they're just as excited as we are to let everybody know what, you know, what an incredible experience it is to go fishing with us. And you know, again, we've backed this up for a lot of years. So I'm not shy about, you know, screaming about it from the hilltops, because it's true. And I'm incredibly proud of it, and proud of what we've built. What was I going to say? That was something else about Roy. You got me thinking about 20 different things at once, but I can't say enough about how, again, thrilled we are that we've all joined forces, because it's really it's a combination that, look, it's impossible to beat it. You know, there's a lot of good operations out there, but you know what we have going on, you're just not going to find any better anywhere else. And I know what I was going to say. I was going to talk about the culture of every boat. You know, a boat is a boat. You know, one boat has a bathroom downstairs, one doesn't. A boat's a boat. But what really makes a boat is the crew and the culture on the boat, and how they interact with the clientele. And you know, that's where, again, you add somebody like Roy in the mix, and to what we already had going. And what we want everybody that's riding Royal Star, in addition to providing this incredible fishing experience, which we do, that's built in, but we want everybody on that boat to be having the time of their life, to feel, number one, like they're welcome, like they're part of, they're not just going on a trip. They're part of the trip, because we're literally all in the same boat. It's like, they're not just an observer in the adventure; they are the adventure. And between that and just providing a level of comfort, just make sure that everybody is welcomed into the fold. That is among the many other advantages that we have. That is probably the highest of them all, or the greatest of them all.
And then, Tim, our audience is all over the world. We got people watching right now in New Zealand, Australia, New York, Dubai, Florida. I just want to touch on this. I mean, thank you so much for helping me with explaining to everybody about the cycles and everything. But I want to talk more about your boat, gang. A lot of people that are watching, they see the head boats in Florida, the head boats in Texas, or the head boats in New York. This is not what this is. This is like getting a room at the Four Seasons or the Ritz-Carlton and then taking that room fishing. And so kind of, Tim, people that don't know what we're talking about as far as the experience, the chefs, the accommodations, the bedding, the room, the air conditioning, the Starlink, the TV, the whole thing. Talk about it just for a minute. Just you're explaining to someone who's never seen it before.
Well, all of the above, what you just said, I don't want to oversell it. It's not the Queen Elizabeth II, I mean, it's not champagne and caviar, and it's not that, but it's also not burgers and fries and open bunking, open berthing, and 40 guys sharing one bathroom or shower. It's not that either. We have 12 two-man staterooms. We accommodate 25 anglers at the very most, if we have one, but 24 is the maximum number of anglers we carry. The boat's 95 foot over long, 95 by 25. Ample elbow room, ample space for everybody, and then some. And again, we have 12 two-man staterooms, so there's a lot of room. The accommodations are fantastic. I mean, for going out in a boat, a fishing boat in the middle of the ocean, if you just use the label fishing boat, what the accommodations are not what you would expect. They're at a high level for again what we do. 7-foot bunks, by plenty. I don't know. I have to get my measuring tape out. They're probably 4 feet wide, 3 feet wide. Great accommodations. Every stateroom has a vanity sink. There's heads downstairs on both ends of the boat. There's 2 heads upstairs. Three showers that are shared use. The meals are absolutely fantastic. Chefs prepare 3 meals a day. We do serve a lot. If we can incorporate whatever we're catching into the menu, the guys do. That's actually those are the most popular meals. They are. The guys serve the prime rib. They serve rack of lamb. They do all that. They are well, actually trained gourmet chefs. They serve all that, but they also mix in, again, a good complement of whatever we're catching at the time. If we're catching yellowtail, we'll try to make a meal out of those. Wahoo, yellowfin tuna, whatever it may be. They'll do a couple different preparations. So the meals, three squares a day. Then they put out a snack in between meal times as well. Nobody's walking off the boat hungry. That's for sure. As a matter of fact, most of the time by day 5 or 6, everyone's slapping the mat saying, "Hey, could you cut down on the size of the portions?" Great meals. And then the boat itself, there's plenty of elbow room, as I mentioned. The accommodations of the galley are nice. There's some really good photos on the, we redid our website this year. Still needs a couple of tweaks, but we just launched a new website. I saw some of the pictures of it on the homepage that you guys were broadcasting. There's good pictures of the accommodations. There's some great pictures of the galley in there, as well as the individual staterooms. So if you haven't been out unless you're contemplating a trip, go on there and take a look. It does a really good job of describing the accommodations in detail. And then from the fishing side, I mean, you can't get a better fishing platform. You just can't. There's again ample room. Really a big feature of our operation. You mentioned it earlier, how our fish handling and our fish storage. We understand that every fish that we harvest, and that's what it is out there, because every fish that an angler catches belongs to them. We identify it. Everybody gets a number 1 through 24 at the beginning of the trip. We have tags for you to identify your fish. They're made out of Tyvek. We staple them on a gill plate. And at the end of the trip, those fish belong to each individual angler, whatever they catch, as long as it's within limits, which are incredibly generous. And when an angler lands a fish, we don't, body slam it or mishandle it on the deck. We lay it down gently. We dispatch with a spike in the head. We bleed the fish out. In the case of the larger tuna, anything say over about 25, 30 pounds, we remove the innards, the gills and guts, and then we immerse those fish for the remainder of the voyage in refrigerated seawater that we maintain a temperature of about 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Seawater doesn't freeze till 28 because of the salt content, but we maintain that 29 to 31, 30 degree Fahrenheit temperature consistently steady throughout the entire voyage. And because the tanks are actually, they're completely full of water, how we run our system, number one, we never add any salt because we can control our refrigerant, the amount of refrigerant that goes to each individual tank. We control it. So the temperature doesn't go below that. It doesn't go above that. We maintain it, and then we fill the tanks all the way to the top with water. And when we put the hatch on, dog it down, there's no free surface in the tank. The tank doesn't slosh around like this because the tank is absolutely rock solid, full of water. The fish can't, they may shift that much, but the fish don't move in the tank. They don't get scuffed up. They don't get banged up. The quality of the meat itself is maintained in this beautiful premium condition. We take tremendous pride in the quality of our product. And I can say absolutely hands down, aside from maybe one or two of our other competitors that do a damn good job of producing a good product, no one touches Royal Star product. No one even comes close. And I can say that with complete confidence, doing this for as long as we have, because we put such a high emphasis on producing this quality product. We take a lot of pride in it. Every crew member we have, and ourselves included, when that fish comes on the deck, we understand that has tremendous inherent value. And we also have a responsibility. We're harvesting that fish. We've got a responsibility to that fish to do everything we can to make sure that it's maintained in beautiful condition, and then that product is received, and that beautiful quality is realized on the back end by anglers when they come home and they share that fish with friends and family.
And another thing that's been a problem over the years, Tim, is getting a reservation at the processing plant. You got to call months ahead of time. But if you book a trip with you guys own the processing plant, so you kind of get moved to the front of the line, maybe? No?
Well, it doesn't work that way, because at Fisherman's Processing, we do have a reservation system, and every angler, before they make a trip, we strongly encourage you to make a reservation, and you hold that reservation, you confirm that reservation with a $100 deposit, which goes towards your processing fee, or God forbid, in the case of a trip where you don't have a great success, if it's a shorter one, whatever it may be, if you don't catch $100 worth of fish, then we refund the deposit, of course.
Oh my gosh.
Or we'll roll it over onto another trip, which it happened quite a bit last year, especially in April. Some of those trips, there was weather, trip to bust. Hey, don't worry, we'll give your money back, or we'll roll it onto another trip, whatever needs to be done. Mrs. E will take care of it. But make that reservation, and how the reservation system works, you're prioritized on that trip you're on. And the reservation system works, excuse me, the queue is set up by the order in which the reservation is received. So, we have anglers who are all over it now. They get off a trip and they're booking next year. They book their reservation right away. So they're number one on the list. So when we receive that fish back at the plant, number one, again, the queue is established by the order in which the reservation was received, confirmed with that deposit. So if you made your reservation first, your fish hit the table first, they're out the door first, vice versa. But on those days where multiple boats come in, we fillet the fish in the order in which it's received. We process the fish in the order in which it's received. So if it's a day, for example, that the American Angler arrives at 5:30 and Royal Star arrives at 7:30, American angler fish arrives at fishermen's processing first. American angler fish gets processed before Royal Star fish gets processed, and according to the queue that's established by the reservation system. So we, hey, while it would be great to just, say, because fishermen's processing ownership, it's Randy and I, Roy Rose, 15% owner, Brian Sims, 50% owner. We, Royal Star ownership is Royal Star. The Royal Star team is basically 90% of ownership, but we definitely do not favor Royal Star customers over customers that we receive from the other boat. Fisherman's Process is an independent business, so Mrs. Ekstrom, she runs a tight ship over there. She makes damn sure that everybody receives the same standard of
quality.
Service. Exactly.
Okay, now I got a question through a text message. What about the private boater, which a lot of our members are private boaters? How do they can they get in the mix if they make a reservation?
100%. I'm so glad somebody asked that question. Absolutely. That reservation system is open to not only private boaters, but also the boaters that come in on the local boats. If you've got, as long as the trip arrives in the morning, if you're on a day and a half trip on the Tribute or the Liberty or whatever other boat, we actually have several. Excuse me, I wish I could remember his name right now because Bill is his first name, but he comes down. He brings his fish down from Dana Point. He's got a boat up there in the harbor and catches big bluefin, and he drives them down. We're as long as an angler has a reservation, and they're a private boat, that they're guaranteed that we'll process their fish. The only private boaters that we've had to turn away, we've had to turn them away because they don't have a reservation, or maybe it's a huge day. 5 long range boats got a ton of fish. They're being filleted. And if somebody rolls up at 2 p.m. with some fish and they don't have a reservation, we might just be too swamped that day. Obviously, we have to prioritize the product that we have in the building. We might be overwhelmed. We just have to say, look, we can't take it. But if they've got a reservation, they're in like Flynn. We'll take it.
Okay, another question that he had was, how far, let's just say we have a trip going out we're in the middle of the season. Next weekend, 4 of us are going out on our skipjack and we're going to go try to catch that bluefin. Is a week ahead of time enough time to make the reservation?
Yes.
Okay.
And the one caveat being, we have to shut it. I want to say it's 70 reservations total for a day. That's our limit of reservations that we'll take. Obviously, we have to make sure that we can effectively process the amount of product that we get in. So if there's already 70 reservations on the books for that day, the online system automatically shuts it down. You can't make a reservation. Now, of course, it's a crazy business. I could go off on a total sideline, talking about the fish processing business. We've been co-owners with Sean since 2010. We started the business, but I was never as intimately involved on a day-to-day basis as I was last year. I really put a lot of elbow grease into it, making sure that operations are running smooth in all aspects, and just being more involved, obviously, because Marilee is running the place. But we never know how much fish is going to come in, right? So let's say we cap it at 70 reservations for that day, and it just so happens that day the weather was up, fish went down, whatever. It was a bust. It was a slow day of fishing, or a slow week before that. Well, we got 70 reservations, but the fish comes in and everybody's got 1 or 2 fish a piece or no fish. Well, certainly we can process a whole bunch more fish on that day. So if you roll up on your skiff that day and didn't have a reservation, we'll take your fish for sure, because we've got capacity for it. So I hate to make it sound wishy-washy, but the nature of the business, it just lends itself to that. Sometimes what I can say is, if we have capacity for the fish, we'll bring it in the door. We'll process your fish for you and give you the best processing experience possible. There's a few variables in advance that we never, you just can't anticipate.
Then the final question that Bob Wilson has is, I don't understand the yield of the fish. I've come in, I have 2 bluefin tuna that both weigh over 100 pounds. I can't take all of it. I tell you, Tim, here's my box, or whoever the processor is at the this is what I got. I can only take this much. What happens to the extra fish? Do I have to take it? Can I give it to you guys? What's going on? And that's a legitimate question. He just, because he doesn't know.
Yeah, we've had, okay, there's a variety of scenarios there. First off, the average yield is about 30 to 33%, depending on the size. And that's table ready fish. I'm not talking about red meat. I'm like, the guys really do a good job of trimming it up. And that's, beautiful. Say you get a 100-pound bluefin, you can expect to be walking away with between about 30 and 35 pounds of just beautiful premium loins, table ready is what we call it. Now, caveats being, let's just say it was nighttime fishing, fish came up hot as heck, and, Joe Blow on the crew, gaffs it in the back or gaffs it in the side, and, puts a pretty good ding through the back loin or through the middle of it. That's naturally going to impact your yield. When we cut that loin, and I put plenty of time in on the fillet, so I know, you cut that loin up, you just would be amazed at how much damage that gaff hole does. You gotta trim out. You're gonna lose off that loin. Let's say that loin was 5 pounds. You're probably gonna lose, maybe as much as 10 or 15% of that at times. You just have to hack out because the blood infuses the meat. It's a big tear. Anyway, that can impact the yield. And the other thing that really impacts the yield, the quality of the fish that comes off the boat. And I have to emphasize this again, being as familiar as I am and how much emphasis we place on Royal Star. If the fish is held at a higher temperature, if it gets warm in the well, if the well has a hot spot in it, maybe there's not good circulation in the tank, and some of the fish over on this side of the tank are hotter than others, we get the fish and it's soft, it's really going to impact your yield, because we all remember the old albacore days. Remember the albacore in the sack at the end of the day. It's like, oh my gosh, you go to tear the skin off or cut it off and it's just mush, and if that happens, it's not the fish processors. We can only make the product as good as what we bring in the door. So there's times when the quality of the product that we get off of the boat is it's tough, man. We do our best to harvest as much as possible, but if there's times we just have to cut more of it off than we'd like to make those select pieces, if you will. Going back to the question about if somebody has extra fish, there's two scenarios. The one that you said. Now, if somebody just says, look, I can't take all this fish. Will you take it? Most of the time we will. If it's, if there's a few extra pounds of fish, okay, no problem. We'll take it. And a lot of times we have anglers that are there that maybe they were on the trip and they didn't catch fish, or there's somebody else that was on another trip and didn't catch as much. And we'll just say, hey, would you like some extra fish and a few extra, pieces we've got here? So we one man's, losses or one man's waste, I guess, however you will, discard is another man's treasure. The other scenario is donation fish. And we had this happen a lot in the past. So we've got a policy with donation fish. If somebody comes in, let's say they catch 1,000 pounds of tuna on a 10-day trip, and they say, okay, I only want to keep 500 pounds of this tuna, and I want to donate 500 pounds to Fisherman's Processing so you can give it to your charity of choice. Well, in years past, it sounds great, right? Oh, don't donate to charity. Well, what's happened in the past is now Fisherman's Processing has to pay the labor to fillet that fish. We have to store it. We have to, like the whole thing. There's this notion, or there was this notion out there that, charities were just clamoring for all this fish. Well, they're not. It's hard to give it away, believe that or not. It's hard. So our policy now is if an angler wants to donate their fish, they can, but they
got to pay for processing.
That's right. And we have anglers that do that, and it's super cool. It's a great thing. It's a great thing to do. And when that happens, everybody wins. The charity wins. Fisherman's Processing doesn't take a hit on it, and it's really done I've said this a lot, Dave. I'm going to go back to talking about how, we do our best to be responsible stewards and of the resource and the environment. I've said this a lot, and I stand firm. If an angler is out there just whaling away on fish with the thought that I'm just going to give this away to charity, I really don't think that's justifiable. And I'm going to tell you this, like, I'm a fishing guy. I'm a guy that loves to get them as much as anybody, but I would much rather an angler catch that 100-pounder and say, hey, can I let this one go? And our answer is absolutely, let it go. I would much rather an angler cut that line and let that fish swim and be free and go make more little tunas than keep it and then wonder what the hell they were going to do with it and try to, slough it off on somebody who'll take it at the end of the trip. I'm not talking about, and if you have family and friends you want to share that fish with, great. You know what I mean? Share it, do whatever you will with it. But to not really take full ownership of that fish when at the conclusion of your trip, I just don't think that's justifiable. I really don't. And I think anglers would be much better off if you're in that, you've done that in the past, whatever. I think you really have to give it some thought. And I always say, hey, donate it back to the ocean. You know what I mean? Let that fish go so it procreates and ensures that there's going to be opportunity for our future generations.
Right. And the thing that you told me a couple of years ago, you were on here and you guys are super, and I'm sure the other boats are too, but what you told me was you guys kind of got a running tally going all day because let's just say we're in the heat of the action and we're catching a wahoo and then a yellowfin and then a yellowtail, then another wahoo. And then all of a sudden we're like, well, I got 5, I think. And you're like, no, you got 14. You're like, well, and it's because you got that scoreboard going. So you can go and you can look and you can go, oh, Lord, I'm done. I don't need this. And another thing that people don't understand is the quality of the product that you're going to get from the processing plant is high end. It's food. It's ready to go. You're going to cut it open. You're going to eat it. Stop and look. Hey, we got 35 pounds of food. That's a lot of food. When you stop and you think about it, that's a lot of food. So you start to think about all the food. And then the other thing, Tim, that they never, and I've heard this so many times when I was running yachts down there and we bring the fish into the processing plant and then they're like, Dave, I just got my bill and it was what's going on? I'm like, dude, you knew what it was when we went and you didn't know that that's what it, don't give me that. And the other thing that always pisses me off, Tim, and you need to address this because I got so many private boaters here that they got this misconception, gang. Let me explain something to you right now. And Tim's here. No processing plant, Tim's or any of the other ones down there, want to steal your fish. They're not interested. When Tim tells you it's about a 30% yield, that's at the best quality that came on the boat that they took care of. On the yacht, we're not doing that. We don't have the facilities. We're not doing that. The fish, you're not getting 20% yields epic. But let me let everyone understand out there. The processing plant ain't stealing your fish.
let me tell you something, David.
I hear it all the time, Tim.
Yeah, I can tell all the like I'm a no nonsense guy. You know what I mean? And I can say that Fisherman's processing staff, they've got the patience of Job, my wife included. But if I'm there and it happens, there's a lot of times, it's early in the morning. I get it. And, anglers go in there grumpy, whatever. But, where's my fish? And you even throw out an accusation or a notion that somehow we've stolen your fish, or I'm showing you the door. Get out. I don't want your business. I don't want you. Go away. It is the most maddening. It's the most maddening thing to deal with when you're in the position where a lot and pray to the fish gods that the fishing's good. I can tell everyone there's times like we have so much fish in that building. We are so overwhelmed, just keeping up, I mean, just rocking and we love it. We love being balls to the wall. The last thing anybody there wants is another fish or to take somebody's fish or to stab. We don't have anywhere to put it. So anyway, I don't want to go too far off on that tangent, but you're absolutely right. There's none of that going on. There just flat out isn't. And that's not to say that it's not to say screw ups don't happen. Sometimes they do. A tag gets lost. I mean, I could write a book on all the crazy things that happen. But when it does happen, and it does sometimes, we do our very best to manage it and make it right for the customer. That is our ultimate goal. No matter what, we do our very best to make sure that everybody comes out of it happy. I got sidetracked. You got me. You got me thinking on that one.
No, But the reason why, Tim, is because, my God, at the level that we're doing this at, and I'm bringing the fish, and we're doing, like on the yacht, we're doing these people a highly giant favor, taking it to the processing plant, and then they're going to go get their stuff, and then they're going to come back later and get their fish, and it's all perfect. And then I hear this, Dave, I had 2 bluefin. They were both over 100 pounds, and I only got 58 pounds of meat. And I'm like, yeah, what are you trying to say? And they're like, well, I think they took some of my fish. I'm like, dude, they do not want to take your period ever. Tim's not there and his wife aren't there going, God, I hope we can steal some of these people's fish today. You don't understand. And Tim, it's not uncommon to hear this. It's more common than you even imagine, because I know you hear about it, but you got to see from the other side, the private. Oh, it's just ridiculous. It's like, God, if they even start to hint about it, like you said, I go, we're not going to the processing plant. You go whittle on this shit in your yard. I don't need this. Go whittle. Yeah. I hope it's trash day tomorrow.
Right. And I think I made the point earlier, but I'll make it again. The yield it's really impacted by the quality of the fish we get in there. And I'm telling you guys, one gaff hole in the back of a 40 pounder, especially, you think about it, one gaff hole in the back of a 30 pounder, and of a 30 pounder, you're going to get about 10 pounds of meat, right? 10, 12 pounds, however it shakes out, cut all the remedy, but you have one gaff hole in the back that goes through both back loins, right? Right through the middle of it. And both of those back loins, you're talking, 10 pounds of meat, let's say. Well, both those back loins, you have to cut at least a pound of meat out of that in order to make the clean, beautiful table ready, because you're not going to eat that stuff. It gets all mealy around it. I mean, I don't know if you guys know what I'm describing, but when you lay out a loin that's got a gaff hole through it, you'd be shocked by how much damage it does to the surrounding tissue. So there's a lot of little things, a lot of variables that do impact the yield, that are they're just our guys, working with the product that they have and trimming stuff off to make sure that you get this beautiful table ready product. Let me say the other thing, and I know, hey, processing isn't cheap. It's not, and it just can't be. And we all know, if you're in business in California, I mean, everything and we all know what's gone on with inflation and so on and so forth, and it absolutely has impacted the price. I mean, everything. You know what? I want to emphasize for everybody, it's like, oh my God, $1.90 a pound to fillet my fish. That's Jesus, that's expensive. It's not $1.90 a pound to fillet your fish. It's $1.90 a pound to pick up your fish at the dock, transport it to the facility, sort it, cut it to your specs, your custom specs. We'll do whatever you want, half pound, pound packs, 2 pound packs. We'll cut it to your specs, package it up, vacuum seal it, and then deliver it to you at the door, or freeze it, box it, whatever you guys want done. And yeah, it costs to provide that level of service. But again, it's not just, it's not just filleting your fish. Oh, and then disposing of all
That's what I was just going to say.
The whole other side of it.
The things you mentioned just now, those are the easy parts. Now the facility needs to get clean, and all the carcass and all the pieces and parts got to go, and they got to go somewhere. And I don't know, you guys, you don't just drive down to the edge of the dock and dump it in the water.
No, we have to have somebody come and pick it up. And, in order to provide that standard of service, and especially, the same day processing service, which Fisherman's Processing last year, we expanded our facility. We added a whole nother fillet line. Hey, when we're rocking it at peak season, we've got 28 guys back there. I mean, it's an army that we throw at that, and we have to in order to turn out that same day product. Everybody wants it yesterday, myself included. Everybody wants it done. So we really throw an army. I don't want to, again, get off in the weeds and sound like I'm pissing and moaning about people. We're just explaining what goes into it. But there's a hell of a lot. I've learned so much about the whole processing side of the equation. It's quite it's an incredible service to be able to offer. And we would be in deep Bandini, if you will, without those processors down there. Fisherman's Processing, 5-star, Sportsman. They are an absolutely essential component to the success of that waterfront. Not having that canning option, which you and I talked about that last time. Thank God it's gone. But, those processors really are essential to the success, because everybody has to, it's such an incredible quantity. Everybody has to have something to do with that fish. That the notion that everybody's going to throw 1,000 pounds of fish and go fillet it in their front lawn, that's just not, it's just not realistic. It's just not. So to have those services there, you said it. I mean, it's a godsend. It absolutely is. It's necessary. And, I can tell you also, man, those businesses are for profit. They absolutely are. We have to make it worth our while, but no one's gouging there. No one is. I mean, the price is the price, and it's a way reasonable profit margin.
And a couple of things I need everyone to understand as Tim and I are talking. Real estate isn't free in San Diego. Let's be perfectly honest. And where these processing plants are is places where there is a demand for real estate. The other thing is, if you set the clock back 20 years ago, when you guys first started doing this thing, there was no option. There was nothing. You got in on a trip. First of all, before Tim and Randy developed the RSW, when you got in on a trip, you got a fish that was as solid as this table, and then you put it in the back of your truck, you and your buddies, and you drove up to your house, and you threw it in your backyard or your front yard, and you waited till it got cold or warm enough so you could cut it. And then it was, I'm sorry, I'm just being honest. And then when it was thawing out, it was not a good product to begin with, because now it's already been burnt, freezer burnt. Now it's thawing out. Then you're out there in your front yard cutting this stuff up. Then you got no trimming was gone. No one understood the whole thing, Tim. Now to pay that, and it's a minimal amount of money. I mean, I've cut fish day in and day out back in the 70s and 80s on the back of the boat when we'd catch 500 or 600 albacore a day. And, the product we were putting in those Ziploc are those lettuce bags that we were using.
Cut it and tie it in a knot.
Oh, yeah. That was a shit. Pardon me. That was a garbage product, but that's all we had. That's all we had. No one carried enough ice back. You didn't carry enough ice to ice down 100 albacore. So today, when you guys book a trip to go with Tim or any of the other long range, you got to think, I want to take 100 pounds of meat home. That's a ton of meat. That you don't understand. It seems like that's not much meat. It's meat ready to eat. There's no trimming. There's no nothing. That's a lot of meat. You gotta put that down on the trip cost $2,500 or $4,000 or whatever it costs. You've got to plan on catching some fish to take home. So you better judge for that also, right? I mean, it's kind of a big deal. People are shocked, Tim. Let's get to they're shocked when they see the price. And it's not even that much when you break it down per pound, but you get 100 pounds of that, and I don't even know, what is it, a pound?
Well, the filleting fee is just standard processing, bagging, custom processing is $1.90 a pound. Let's just for sake of the conversation, call it $2 a pound. You go out and catch 500 pounds of tuna, that's 1,000 pounds. So it's $1,000. If you bring 500 pounds of tuna to the processor, so the processing bill is $1,000, a little bit less, but let's say it's $1,000. And for that, you're going to yield 150 pounds of finished product. Now we have all the other options available too. We've got the jerky product, we've got the smoked product, all of which are excellent. We actually do have a canning option there, custom canning. There's a full suite of processing options, especially for anglers that, they make 2 or 3 trips a year. They want to have some different stuff, but I always emphasize to anglers and encourage them at the beginning of their trip. We've talked about it a lot, between your show, between Pete's show, and spreading the word of mouth on the boat. Everybody who's willing to listen, stand on the hilltops, have a plan before the trip. And you made that point just a bit ago. It's like, think about how much you really want. Think about how much you want to keep. Think how much you want to take. And I'm so encouraged. What I can tell you and everybody listening, the evolution of this fishery has been so incredible, and I have been a big part of it. I can take credit, and I know that Randy felt the same way. But my colleagues, Brian Kiyohara, there's a few of us from our generation that really put a lot of effort into evolving the fishery from being a go out there and just slam dunk every single possible thing you could and a giant mountain of fish on the sidewalk and lowered it up, walk around feeling great. We have evolved the fishery. It is completely transformed to a pursuit of the best quality fish that we can find, meaning size and species, and then returning with the best quality product possible, so anglers are the beneficiaries of that harvest on the back end. I can tell you today that, and this is coming from a guy who's, I'm percentage owner in a fish processing business. So I want to see that quantity of product come in the door. Obviously our business depends on it, but I want to see that distributed over a lot more people, you know what I mean? And we encourage everyone to have that plan ahead of time. What I was going to say is, if the evolution of this fishery, I'm so thrilled now. I see anglers at the beginning of the trip, they're thinking about this. The anglers that have plenty of practice now, they know what they want. They know what they want. They get 4 or 5 yellowtail and they're like, okay, I got my yellowtail. And they release everything after that gladly. 25-pound yellows, Laos rocks, 25-pound yellows, in on the beach. And, maybe they'll catch one more. Yeah, that's a nice one. I'm going to keep one more. But after that, they're done. And you mentioned it before, we keep a running tally. It's right there in the bait tank for everybody to reference as the trip progresses. When an angler catches a fish, the process I explained earlier, we spike the fish, bleed it. And then before we drop it into the RSW hold, refrigerated seawater, we have a list with your name or your number, and then we have the species listed at the top, and we just mark it in the appropriate column. So number 2 has, 3 yellowtail, has 2 bluefin, has, 1 bass or whatever the hell it might be, or Dorado, whatever it might be. But anglers throughout the trip, they reference that list regularly. So it's day 4. And I wake up in the morning. My goal was to keep, 8 yellowtail. The limit is 15 in Mexico. It's very generous. Limit of yellowfin tuna, 15. You can keep 30 fish total. But anglers reference that list all the time. They wake up in the morning. Oh, okay, I've got 3 yellows. I can keep, I can keep 12 more, but I only want, 8 or whatever it may be. So I've got this many yellows. I got this many tuna. And they regularly reference that list, keeping track of what they have in that tank, and they calculate it out. They ask me all the time, hey, if I've got, 300 pounds of yellowtail or whatever it might be, I've got 200 pounds of yellowtail, how much does that translate into finished product? And I'll run the calculation and tell them, oh, it's going to be about this. Okay, cool. I'm going to keep 1 more. I'm going to keep 2 more. I've got enough, whatever it may be. The bottom line is that how this fishery has evolved. Anglers today, 2024, 2025, as good as the fishing is, right? And we talked about it, historic, best fishing I've ever seen. the long range fleet, Royal Star, all the boats overall are returning with way, way less fish than we did 30 years ago. You know, when we were pouring those fish into the brine tanks and just, you know, whatever it was, you know, you put a tag on it, throw it in there and whatever, you know, send it up to the top of the sidewalk. And that was the last we ever saw of it. Anglers are so much more cognizant of what they're catching, what they're keeping, with that focus being on quality. Overall, the fleet's catching. I'll bet you the fleet on an annual basis. I'll bet you the long range fleet. I'm going to throw a number out there, anecdotal, but I'll bet you the long range fleet is retaining probably 25% less, 30% less than it did 30 years ago, and that's a damn good thing. You know, anglers are really, really more aware of what they're taking, what they're keeping, between the processing costs and just general understanding of the environment. I think everybody has a much better environmental awareness now, but all of those things combined have led to a much, much more efficient fishery that is focused on what I feel are the right things, focused on returning with you know, with we target the largest fish possible and return with the highest quality fish possible.
Absolutely. And you guys have learned that there's no reason in the world to take all those fish now. With the processing that's going on, the quality of the fish is so high level that you can't even comprehend. It's as good, if not better, than most fish markets today. And the quality is there. And then the yield is absolutely incredible. One thing, and then we're going to end the show, that you skimmed over really quick. And I think some people, I know they've had a problem when I was running boats, and they would go, well, I got 30 pounds of fish. That should be $60. No, 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 no. 30 pounds of meat that you took home, gang, and Tim brushed over it fast, but you have to listen. That's 100-pound fish. You're paying for the 100-pound fish to be processed. You're not paying for the 30 pounds of meat. It's super important, because I've dealt with this a lot, Tim. I'm sure you guys have at the plant, but people come up to me and go, well, I only got 30 pounds. Yeah, I know you got 30 pounds of the best eating fish in the world because your fish weighed 100 pounds. Understand that's because you got to process. You just didn't work on that 30 pounds of the fish. They worked on the whole thing, the head, the guts, the tail, all the trimmings, everything, gang. So relax. Tim's not buying a mansion off of your fish processing. His wife's not buying a Lamborghini or a
Gucci bags,
yeah.
diamond.
This is
Louis Vuitton.
This is a phenomenal amount of work, a phenomenal amount of overhead. The insurance, you can't even comprehend what the insurance is. All those guys are flinging knives back there. When the insurance company guy comes in there, he's like, huh? You guys are slinging knives? And you're like, yeah, look. And they're like, oh my gosh. So do you think the insurance, everything costs money, gang? So just take a deep breath and understand it is an absolute honor to get our fish processed. I came from the world where it never happened. And you do not want to go back to taking them home and setting up a sawhorse and a piece of plywood and making the most god-awful mess in your front yard. Your wife's not going to let you go again. I'm just saying.
Yeah, taking all those carcasses and hunting down a dumpster in the middle of the night. Man, back when I was a kid, we were 12, 13, you know, we'd go albacore fishing and we'd come back with our, you know, 5 or 6 fish and do exactly that, flame in the driveway. And fortunately, but back then I lived up in North County, Del Mar, and we'd go throw those carcasses. It was all there was nothing over there behind east of the freeway, east of the 5. There's nothing over there, so you just go over there and, you know, kick them out the backyard. Man, there's those coyotes at night. You can hear them for 2 miles. You go in the morning, there was nothing left, absolutely nothing. There wasn't a bone, there wasn't a tail. Nothing. It was like coyote party, and but I don't think that would go over very well nowadays. You know, unless you live somewhere super remote. Anyway, it is a godsend to have the service, no question about it.
And it's something you got to think about when you're getting ready to book the trip.
Yeah, I like the way you said that. You know, you just calculate it in ahead of time. You know, you have a plan. It's like, okay, what's the maximum amount I want to spend on my processing? And I would say, you know, the average processing bill when you go out on a, you know, let's say a 7 day, it's kind of a middle of the road average on a long range trip. average processing bill, I mean, it's probably around $1,000, $1,200, you know, and that again, that leaves you with, you know, 300-400 pounds of finished product. It's a lot of fish. That's a lot. You know, it's your average meal size portion is what, 8 ounces, you know, a half a pound or maybe less, 6 ounces of 300 pounds of fish. If you ate it every day of the year, you're still going to have fish left over in the freezer.
And then the other thing I learned when I took my son boar hunting 2 years ago, you got to figure out where the hell you're going to put all the meat at the end. That was the dumbest stuff I ever did. And then I had to go on top of the hunting and all the bullshit. I had to go buy a flipping freezer at the end because I had nowhere to put all the pig meat.
I've heard that. I've heard that so many times. Yeah, thanks to you, I got another freezer in my garage.
So you got to think it all the way through. And how much fish meat do you want to have in your freezer, and how long is it going to take to eat? So that's all I wanted to talk about at the end of the show is this fish processing thing has been such a phenomenal thing to have, which we never had before, but just the silliness that comes from it because people don't understand that fish it's 100-pound fish. It's Tim's being nice saying 30 pounds of meat, and he's telling you because he's been doing this for 20 years. He knows what's going to come off of it, but that's if everything's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And I got to say, just, you know, in closing about it, you know, we're talking about, oh, you bring in 300 pounds of fish home and what are you going to do with it? I know, and I can speak from personal experience and, you know, what I hear from so many, you know what, there is such a tremendous amount of pleasure, tremendous amount of satisfaction in coming home and sharing that product with friends and family. And I mean, especially again, I'm going to toot our own horn here. You come off Royal Star and, you know, you give somebody, you know, a couple of pounds of yellowtail and they take it home and they're thinking, oh, you know, that's nice. So they're going to give me that. And then they cook it and they eat it and they come back and go, that was the best fish I've ever had in my life. What was that? Oh my God. You know, no, whether it was tuna or yellowtail, Dorado, I mean, everything, the quality is so incredible. And I know myself, because I've had that experience hundreds of times over the years. I you know, I puff up about it. It's like I'm so proud, number one, of the product, but I'm also stoked that I got to share. You know how many kids that I have, how many families that their kids wouldn't touch a fish if their life depended on it. I was like, oh, I don't like fish, you know, and they try Royal Starfish, whether it's yellowtail or tuna, and next thing you know, we have a converted soul. Somebody who's eating fish now. What is the best protein in the entire world for somebody to eat? It's unquestionable. Fish is especially for kids. It's the best thing they can do, especially when they're small, for their brain development and the like. I just, again, I take tremendous pride in sharing that fish and having, you know, families come back and now their kids are fish eaters or people who didn't like fish. I always tell them, you know, I hear somebody say, oh, I don't really like fish. I say, well, that's because you haven't had good fish. You know, you haven't tried good fish. And as many times as I've said that, and I'll either cook it myself or have somebody, you know, share it with somebody who cooks fish, who shares it with a friend who didn't like it. And you know what, they like it after that. So anyway, that to me is as valuable as enjoying it yourself on your own table, sharing it with friends and family. I mean, it adds value to the overall experience, and it satisfies that primal hunter, you know, gatherer urge. Or we're sharing with the tribe. You know, we come home with our trophies, and now the whole tribe's eating.
Yeah, exactly, gang. And this was something that needed to be addressed because I've listened to you on Pete's show and I've listened to you many times on other people's podcasts or things that you've written and talked about. But one thing that needed to be addressed where the masses could hear it is the yield and the price. And now you know there's no more questions. Share this with your friends. Keep this podcast in your pocket, on your phone, save it. So when you're going with your buddies and they're telling you, well, then they rip me off. Listen to this. Listen to this. Listen to this. You guys need to understand what's going on. And no, Mike, you got to remember, this isn't magic. You don't make a reservation, come in on the boat in the morning, and then wait a couple hours, have breakfast, and then get your fish. They have to process it. They have to get it in the freezer bags. They're best case scenario, you're the only boat that came in, and you could go have breakfast and then have lunch, and then right before your dinner, you could pick up your fish. But you got to remember, it's not magical.
There's a lot of times I got to tell you. I mean, our same day turn times are so fast, it would blow your mind. I mean, we generally limit we limit our same day reservations. I want to say it's 25 now. We have 25 same day reservations that we'll take. And let's say you're the first boat coming in. Let's say Royal Star is the first boat that comes in. We get in at 5:30. Fish are off the boat. They're in there on the road. They're at the facility at 7, right? Staged. That first fish is coming off the line. I mean, finished product done, the whole rack, 7:30, 7:45, and they'll blow through. They generally process about with both tables rocking, it's almost 2,000 pounds an hour.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Oh no, they rip through it.
There you go.
It's a rare day. And obviously there's the variable is how much fish is coming in, but it's a rare day that we're not totally done with our same day processing by 2 p.m. That's a late one, 2 or 3. Most of our same day, we're usually completed by 11 or noon.
Is that up by?
Pardon me?
Is that a little extra money for same day?
No, it's not. It's the
same price.
Yeah.
You just got to get your reservation in as quick and early as possible.
That's exactly right. You try to elevate yourself in the queue, and that'll get you out there faster. I mean, if you're number 1 reservation coming off the first boat, you were talking about going and having breakfast. I mean, we had this happen a million times. Somebody's over there eating breakfast at Perry's, which sadly is out of business now, but now they're down at Denny's or whatever, and they get a phone call. It's 7:45. Hey, your fish is done. It's ready for pickup. They're like, what? We just got our breakfast on the table. That happens all the time. So the same day service is incredibly fast and efficient. We understand, hey, everybody wants out of there. They got in on their trip. Now, a suggestion that I can make, we've had a lot of anglers who, let's say you come in on the you're the 5th boat in, you're still number 1 in the queue, but it looks like, hey, look, now, you got 4 boats fishing that's ahead of you. In all likelihood, you're going to be getting out of there around 1, 2, 3 in the afternoon, just because there's so much fish in the queue in advance. If you can have it done the next day, or if you don't want to wait, if you're anywhere within, say, even if you're in Orange County, San Clemente, just have them fillet and say you're going to pick it up the next day. They still fillet it that day, but that'll get you out of there. You can get on the road and go unpack your stuff, put your feet up on the couch, and then roll back down the next day and pick it up. It's a really good suggestion for I know it's out, we see, I think Sean used to say it was great. He's like, after 2 p.m. people turn into pumpkins, and I've seen that phenomenon myself. So it's not a bad idea. If you're going to be one of those that turns into a pumpkin, just say, you know what, man, I'll be here next morning. Roll down, avoid traffic, jump on the freeway at 5:30 and get down there at 7:30 and pick up your product the next day. That's a really good way to go about that.
I'm glad you asked that question, Mike Lewis, because now I just learned. That is awesome. Everybody, what a great show. 2-hour show today. Incredible. Tim and I could sit here and talk to you guys probably for the rest of the year.
Especially with you guys fired off questions. Yeah, like I'm just getting warmed up. We go, but that just means you'll have to tune in on the next show.
Absolutely. And we're so happy to have Roy Rose with you. He's such a fun guy to have on the show. And Tim, thank you so much for taking time to be with us today. This was a very, very educational show. My followers got a ton of information for this big fishing game meeting on the 17th is when they're going to talk about the Sandbass. But like I told everybody, gang, I'm going to put the QR code up there. It's the end of the show. What I would suggest, just so you're in the practice, be on the meeting on the 16th. Learn how to use your phone or your iPad to raise your hand, because there's going to be salmon talked about. There's going to be kelp. There's going to be abalone. There's going to be expansion of the MPAs. There's so much on the agenda. We can all be a part of every part of it. Plus, it gives you a idea of how the whole system works. So, you know, when they call on you, how to unmute your phone or unmute your iPad or unmute your computer. Everything's a build up to this Sandbass thing. And always remember, none of this has to do with fish. This has to do with controlling us and making sure that we don't smile or get a suntan. They don't want you going outside, gang. If you don't understand that yet, you need to understand it. It has nothing to do with fish. It's all about control. Period. End of story. And watch the 5 people that are there making the decisions. And you tell me how much time they've spent outside and they know what they're talking about. I'll see you all tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., fish report day. We got a bunch of people out fishing the last 5 days. They're all going to be calling in, doing the reports. Thank you, Tim Ekstrom, from all of us that watched the show today. We had a blast with you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Absolutely. Likewise, you guys. I enjoy the time sharing